How you doing, everyone? Andy here. Quick little intro before the episode gets started. So today on the show, we have Robbie the Fire Bernstein, Run Your Mouth, part of the problem. Very funny dude, very smart dude, very talented dude. Had a lot of interesting shit to say. But here's the truth. YouTube, they're kind of annoying about certain things. And they like to give you your channel strikes if you say no things. If you say things about schmack schmeens and stuff like that. You know what I mean? If you say things about certain type of shots that they're like not on board with, they go, yo, get out of here, dickhead. Well, I'm not trying to deal with that. I'm going to be straight up. Not trying to deal with that, but I'm also not completely taking it away. The full episode, you will see it on iTunes, Spotify. Don't worry, I'm not cutting a lot out, just cutting out some shit that I don't have to deal with some shit. You guys know how it is. I will be trying to set up like a Rockfin channel or something in the future so you can just not have to worry about the shit. Honestly, that's where we should be shifting anyway. If YouTube's trying to be annoying, we should try to shift over there. But at the same time, if YouTube's the fucking spot, you really should be at the spot. But either way, we could talk about that in a whole other episode and this and that. Just going to have to take a small chunk out. But if you want to hear the whole thing, Spotify, iTunes, all that shit. But yeah, guys, Robbie was dropping goddamn knowledge on this. This is a really, really good episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So strap in. Got Robbie the Fire Bernstein. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Enjoy. I love y'all. Peace. All right. Welcome to another episode of No More Heroes. I'm your host, Andy Malafrina, and this is a special episode. We're breaking our guest cherry. Guys, gals, everyone, welcome. The very funny Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How you doing, Robbie?
I'm offended. I thought I was your hero, Andy.
You are? Sorry. That's the asterisk on the podcast. No more heroes except Robbie Bernstein because he is able to pick out the greatest treats known to man.
That's true. I do have good treat skills.
Yeah, that's a big if you ever get the chance to do some road shows with Robbie, he has a sixth sense for sniffing out treats. Like we made a huge beeline. We made a huge beeline the one time because you were like, right. I smell the Amish. We were driving through PA. And you're like, I can sense the Amish are around.
Right.
Hey, yo, it was like perfect to what the fuck was it? Like a cinnamon Pop-Tart?
Yeah, those were pretty good. I actually felt like my sixth sense kind of failed me on that one. Because I was craving pie and then I saw that and it started talking to me. And I feel like it wasn't as danky and dense as I had expected it. Also, I mistakenly bought like 40 of them. Like I bought enough for like a pretty big operation.
Oh yeah, you bought enough that it felt like we were going to a fucking potluck or some shit where you needed to bring your own.
Yeah. But they were solid, and I do have a sixth sense that if I walk into like a place and they got pastries out, they talk to me and they let me know what's going to be delicious. I'm almost never let down.
Yeah, you look like what's his face from Good Will Hunting, where you're like staring at the board, like I can figure out this equation. You're like that one over there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have to get weird with it. I have to actually put my hand on the case in order to sense the energy. But for the most part, I can just look at it, run some reconnaissance and math in my head, and boom, make a good pick.
Hell yeah. You got to put your hand on the case and you're just like, the pies are talking to me.
I just got to say up front, I went to the gym and I sauned and now I'm like trying to hydrate from that. So I just want to say up front, I might need a piss break. I'm just letting you know because sometimes I'm on podcasts and I'm like, can I take a piss break? And it gets like I feel like I'm in the aisle seat on an airplane where like I know I have to do it, but I'm anxious about it. So I figured I'd just let you know up front that might happen.
No, I feel you. Thank you for letting me and the viewers know. That is a funny moment when you do a podcast that's been going for a minute and then you do that everyone does that mad dash because they were trying not to be rude.
Right.
I got no qualms about mid podcast pissing. So you're in welcome company here, dude.
You know what? Maybe I'll make it my thing. I'll just like make an announcement at the beginning that I got a really bad bladder. It's part of my general Jewiness, and then I might have to use the bathroom.
Just fucking normalize it.
Yeah, and then I won't even ask. Like, I'll just start walking out on people like right in the middle.
Yeah,
coming back, and they'll be like, "What the fuck?" I'll be like, "I told you, I got the bladder thing."
I made it a point in the beginning. I was up front. Adjust to this.
Yeah.
You have a good Thanksgiving.
It was okay. You know, my family does lunch, and so I tried to wake up early enough to like get all my shit done. but I didn't quite get all my shit done. So then I showed up like, fuck, I can't really throw down. Like if they did 8 p.m., I would have gotten hammered. I would have stayed at my parents' house till like, 12 in the morning. I would have watched dumb action movies with my dad. But like I'm not big on the day drinking. So like I was good for the first hour. I went to the gym before and I showed up. I made myself like one sandwich. But then like once I'm at a table past an hour, I lose all self-control. And then I ate like 4 pieces of pie, and then I hated myself and started drinking whiskey. And
Mm-hmm.
then I left, went to sleep, and then woke up and ate more food. So it depends on how you look at it. Like my family just needs to readjust. You know what I mean? Like an 8 p.m. Thanksgiving would be perfect.
Yeah, Thanksgivings are always like weirdly early. Like Thanksgiving is always a combo of like, all right, get ready to eat a food we never eat at a time no one
We
eats
don't
food.
eat.
It's a very odd thing that they
And everyone else, it's because everyone else is a jerk off. They're going to like some second Thanksgiving, and my grandfather's dying. Get it together, check in or out and decide which meal you're going to go to. And let's do it in an hour. I can drink. I hate being around people in social settings if it's prior to what a drinking hour is. I don't know if you have that.
No, I just start drinking.
Yeah, but like I made a rule for myself that I mainly keep to not to day drink, and I feel like that's been a alcoholism lifesaver.
Why don't you day drink?
For that reason. I feel like that rule of not drinking until like the day's over and I've gotten everything done has been a
Mm.
game. Also, general theory on drinking. I find drinking has about a 4 hour utility window, and then you start maintaining.
And then
So
you either gotta mix in other substance or you gotta tap out.
yeah, but you're basically maintaining. So it's like I almost like I admire some of the people I go on the road with where they're having beers like 12 or 2 p.m. because I'm like that like I'll have like you have a beer before the show, then you got a good buzz going. But if you have like the 12 and 2 p.m. beer, now you have to have like a stiff drink at 7:30, 8 p.m. So like you're back, you know what I mean? You're maintaining now. It's
Oh
not fun
yeah.
anymore.
No, see, I like day drinking if there's nothing on the itinerary.
Right.
If we got stuff to do later that night and it's like 2 p.m. and someone wants to like start drinking, I'm like, no, I'm gonna fuck because the time the 4 hour window is kind of genius. I never thought about that because if you're just drinking, it's 4 hours. And then after that, like you said, you're fucking maintaining because either you've gotten to a drunk that it's hard to like maintain without like passing out or whatever,
Right.
or you're just trying to like wait it out till you can either sober up or you're with friends and you're waiting for them to tire out so you guys can all leave and shit.
Right. I will say I love the blends. Like I like drinking like I like keeping it under 6 drinks basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then throwing in other stuff if I'm really looking to get after it. So it's like I like throwing in the weed, maybe some Adderall, or sometimes on a gig you do like a single mushroom type thing and you're
Yeah,
drinking like I like the blends more than I like the hard drinking these days.
I think the blends is where you got to go because like I've noticed that with because I've been in smoking a little more weed lately, and when you're like out and about and stuff, and you're feeling, I've actually noticed like a quick hit or something will like boost my energy in a weird way.
Yeah, weed's coming back in like for a while it was making me too anxious, so I didn't like it. But and I also thought like weed was a little bit like roulette in that like if I drink, I know exactly how it's gonna hit me. And
Yeah,
I'm never like, oh shit, I drink and now I feel really depressed. I don't want to be around these people, or oh shit, like I just got so hammered I can't handle myself. Like
yeah.
weed, I used to have those moments, so it was like not a sociable thing, but weed's back on the menu, man. I fucking love weed when I'm out now.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. I agree with that. Because I think you and me drink way more than we do anything else. So,
Yeah,
so I'm with you on that. With like drinking, I definitely have like much more of a control over it. Like the other night, because I'm like getting back into weed and I'm doing all the like high school mistakes. Like the other night, I had some edibles and I was like, these edibles aren't doing anything. And then 2 hours later, I was like, they're doing a whole bunch. And it
yeah.
like yeah, it like it like fucked the whole rest of my day up and everything. So I think drinking's a lot less guessing because like any drink you have, if you wait like 20 minutes, the like the big thing that it's gonna do to you is gonna like dissipate for the most part. But a
Right.
lot of stuff like weed, acid, mushrooms, once you're like locked in, It's like, yeah, no, this is gonna be the director's cut. You better fucking hang out.
Right. You're a beers guy, so it's hard
Yeah.
to like, unless you're like chugging beers for absolutely no reason. It's very hard to turn around and go, "Oh my God, I'm filthy drunk."
Yeah, no, it's definitely because I had that's actually why I'm a big beers guy. Is I had a bunch of those experiences in like college and shit where you are just like fucking drinking liquor or mixed drinks or whatever, like their water, and then you have that moment where you stand up and you go, "What the fuck just happened?"
I'm a whiskey guy, and like I like having, I like drinking. I like having one or two on the rocks. Sometimes I go as many as six, but sometimes you go to places and they pour it like they give you a fucking glass.
Yeah,
I had that when I was in Texas. We were hanging out at the Creek in the Cave. And I
yeah,
forgot how much fun the Creek in the Cave, because now, I mean, it used to be in Long Island City,
yeah.
and I forgot about the funner nights I had there of just really partying hard. And then I went, we did a backyard show, summer porch tour, even though it wasn't summer. We did a backyard show with Scott Horton. And then I went over to the Creek to do their late show. And there were just so many people hanging. And there's like a green room, there's the outdoor area, there's this bar, there's that bar. And I hung out drinking there till I think 2:30 in the morning. But that was a rare night where I overdid it.
Yeah. How is the new creek? Because I haven't been to I hadn't gone to the old creek a shitload, but I went to it enough to
Right.
kind of like get the vibe.
I've been there twice. I had a blast both times. I will say that there's the vibe of being at these places when you're on the road is completely different, because like you're on vacation, so you're making it fun.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're stopping by in New York City, mentally, like I'm on the clock, I got my car, I got to get out of there. Or like maybe other comics feel that you're competing with them, so they're not so gracious. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're just passing through town, people are very like, "Oh shit, you're from New York." Like they don't have to see you again, so they're very nice, because they're like, "Oh, I only have to be nice to this guy for one evening, and then he thinks I'm a nice person, right?" Whereas if you live there, they're like, oh, "I'm gonna have to be nice to him tonight, and tomorrow he's gonna think that I like him. I'm gonna have to be nice to him again. This is a commitment."
That's funny. That's funny. So hey, I wanted to ask you about this because I'm sure you've talked about this already, but I've brought this up like an episode or two ago on the podcast. So I do want to ask you about
Sure.
you were on without a country
Yeah,
in Brooklyn.
I appreciated that you were there, showing the support.
Yeah, I had nothing to do that night. I saw you posting about that, and I'm like, well, I want to go out and do some stuff. This seems like a fun thing to do. And then I'm sitting there. Where was it at? The Doped Up comedy spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Doped Up. They did Without a Country there, and you guys were doing the midterm elections, right? Yeah. And I was just kind of chilling in the back, hanging out, and then some shit started to happen. It got really interesting, and it was fun. It was fun watching you operate in front of like enemy territory. I don't know what's the corny conservative term you want to say.
No, that's fine.
But no, yeah, it was very interesting. So basically, they start talking about vaccines and all this stuff, and it was basically the crowd versus Robbie. And I like it. There was a bunch of funny parts, but I'm very curious about like your perspective, because I'm like I'm like into politics, but I'm new to being more public about them.
Right.
And the thing that was like getting me excited was like watching you, because one, I know you, and two, I was like, I would crumble up there, because I would just be like, I'd be like, everyone's mad at me. Maybe I am wrong. You know what? I'm a liberal. I'm sorry.
Right.
What's it like in that moment when like essentially the whole room is just kind of like, no, you're an idiot.
I will. That was a very new experience for me.
Yeah.
And I will say, listen, I mean, if you can go listen to Run Your Mouth, I am capable of not shutting the fuck up. And I've also done my own live podcast that I do solo, and I can fill time in the political territory. If I did it again, I would be less gracious, because I was really trying to not derail her show. Because I'm aware of the fact it's not that easy to pull the amount of people that she did for a live show.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really thinking, oh, I'm not going to play well for the room. Let me play well for the live. I was really trying to be like gracious and sit in the pocket and just try and be funny. The last half hour I got bored, and so I threw a nuke into the room with why I liked Ron Johnson, and I kind of knew that that was going to stir the pot.
Wait, and who's Ron Johnson to catch everyone up? Not me, I know, but everyone else.
I think he's the senator of Arkansas. I could be wrong on the state.
Okay.
The reason I like him is he's been the most aggressive in pursuing Hunter Biden, and he's also been running like you can find them on YouTube, but he's been doing like these open hearings to basically document vaccine injuries. So I would say
okay.
now I don't know. He might be a shitty Republican outside of that, but those two endeavors are quite interesting. And I was hoping that he would get reelected. So, anyways, I threw that nuke into the room, and I knew that that was going to stir some shit. But if I could do it again, I would be a little bit less gracious in that I now kind of understand the dynamics of it, and I would make people kind of take more accountability for their opinions. I found what was getting very frustrating is that I would disprove things, and then they would just pretend like that's what they were saying, or they would change the topic to never admit to having been wrong. And I thought the most disingenuous thing is that I would give a reason to my logic. The best example of this was they were talking about gas prices. And I was like, well, that's not, they were basically saying the president has no control over gas prices. And I said, that's not true. He's limited investment into new oil drilling. So you're limiting supply. If you're limiting supply, right, and there's the same amount of demand, you're going to increase the cost. And also, if you're telling manufacturers that you don't want their product around, you're letting them know, A, don't invest, and B, this is your time to cash in. And then the response was, well, it's just been widely reported that the president has no control over oil prices. So I didn't really attack that. I just kind of like let it sit. But it's like when you say widely reported, where do you, well, firstly, why are you dismissing my argument? Do you think what I said is not true? And when you say widely reported, do you think I invented that? Like I didn't read it. So when I read it, that's not widely reported because I probably got that from the Wall Street Journal and other economists that I read. So it's like, why is your information widely reported and mine's not? And if you can't take on the argument of my idea, then, you know, that's at least honest to go like, well, I've never heard anyone put it that way. But I still think, and then I could be like, well, why do you think the president has no influence? And then at least like we're having a conversation around the ideas. There was something particularly frustrating, and I didn't hold them accountable to it, where like you'll just be dismissed on the basis of, well, it's been widely reported otherwise. All right, well then like take on my argument. I just said something. I know it to be accurate. It should at least be interesting. Like tell me why I said wasn't true.
Yeah.
So I found that part to be pretty annoying. And you could see it that I nearly lost my cool a couple times because like those were the things that were bothering me. It was the disproving people and then they would just move on, or just being discredited without them giving you a reason why you're wrong, other than, well, that's just not supposed to be right. That's essentially what they're saying to you.
The one part that made me laugh was, so at one point they literally, what was the girl? She was like a PhD student, or
can I tell you what was so funny about that?
Yeah.
I've been wanting to debate someone who pretends to understand COVID, doctor, professor, like anything.
Yeah.
Because I'm a dummy, but I got a handle on this shit. And my outlook is I work sales and I can tell when people are lying. And I could just tell, particularly when it came to COVID, that the machine was lying. I could just tell. And so I became fascinated with it. And I did a lot of homework on it. And I've been right this entire time. So I've been looking for an opportunity to fucking smash somebody.
Yeah.
I said something that was not true right before basically she stood up to go, I'm a professor in this, or I'm a fucking graduate getting my degree and whatever. And I said that like I have all the themes right. I got a lot of the information right. I said something that just wasn't true, that like the mRNA shot gives you like gives you the spike protein, which is not true. It gives you like the ability to manufacture whatever. It doesn't even matter. I just said something that wasn't true. And like, oh, this lady. And I was like, I've said a lot of things that were accurate. And I was like, the last thing I said was not accurate. I'm fucked. This is going to look bad. And then she stood up. So I was actually nervous. And then she stood up, and that was literally, but this is exactly what I'm describing. I was saying it's marketing to describe it as a vaccine because it doesn't work like any other vaccine ever. It's a different process. And then she got up there and goes, in short, well, it is a vaccine, and here's the different process that it uses. I'm like, well, then you just said what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of shit that they do, where they just kind of. But I smashed her. I mean, I literally took that lady's soul. You can go watch it.
Yeah, the part that made me laugh was at one point she literally, because like I give her credit because she stayed in the pocket there with you, and you literally turned to her at one point and you were like, what did I say that was wrong? You know what I mean? Because like you got the whole crowd like throwing up their hands and like being like a lot. And then you're like, you go to her, you're like, what did I say that was actually wrong? And then there's like a long pause. And I remember at one point she says a thing where she's like, now I forget exactly what it was. It was like saying that you are right, but I don't want to say that you're right. It was like, it was this thing where she was trying to find any little like technicality where just to like, I was watching, it was like hurting them almost. Like, now I want to ask you this, like, because you could probably see some of this from on the stage where you're at, but it was like, pretty bright up there. And I'm sitting in the back and I see there was this one girl in the back that I found fascinating, and was like, anytime she heard you say a thing that she's like, but that's not the thing. That's not the thing we're supposed to say. It would be like a full body. Like, I'm not kidding. She'd like throw her arms up and just like, and it's like, what is that, man? Because I was looking at it this way. I was listening to this one podcast on, and they had this earlier today, and they had this guy on, and he was like, yeah, I have this whole podcast about why Jerry Sandusky's actually innocent. And like, my reaction to that goes, all right, give it to me. That's fascinating. Like, so that's my reaction to stuff like that. But then like, what is that thing with other people when they hear like something that goes contrary to what they think? And it's like this full body spasm. That's the thing that perplexes me the most about some of these people.
No, that's such an interesting insight. And it's because they're playing for a team. Like, you're actually interested in information. So you're like, oh, if you have an argument that's counter to what I thought, I'd love to hear that out. And you're actually open to having your mind changed. These people are committed to, I don't even know what the cause is, but like, they seem to have some sort of a commitment to like, I think part of it, someone said this to me recently, maybe it was BK Chris, but part of it is that these guys go to school and they get graduate degrees. And so they think they've earned being right without thinking because they've gone through the structure. So kind of the guideline is, hey, if you earn your graduate degree, no one's supposed to be able to argue with you in your field of study. And if you're reading the New York Times, you're getting your daily update on what's right. And that's a very convenient worldview because you don't really have to think about things. And everyone in your support circle all agrees, well, if you've done this, then you're on the right side. And so if you start kind of cueing people in on the fact that they're knowledgeless and that their investment in all of the places that they're getting news and information from is worthless because they're not actually thinking, you understand, like, you're challenging these people's essence. These people's essence is, I'm the informed person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's kind of where they get a little bit of their dignity from, is I'm the progressive New York Times reading. I'm the person doing my homework. I care about these social causes and I'm right and informed. And so if you start giving them information that runs counter to that perspective, that they're actually noble and informed, it's very uncomfortable for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely, because I think a lot of times they don't interact. I think you and me have a different perspective because, we're probably two of the four libertarians in comedy.
Right.
There might be like 6 or 7. And so it's like constantly, I think I was saying something like this to either you that night or someone else a different time, or maybe on the podcast, where I was just like, if I had that reaction to any time someone said something I disagree with, I'd have no one to interact with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think we're set up and ready for this kind of thing, but it seems
these people, it's a bad perspective because, like, you don't have to be that married to your point of view. If you're married to your point of view, it hurts your ego when you're wrong. the better way to frame it is that I'm married to my ability to have critical reasoning and be wrong.
Yeah.
So I try not to take as bold stances as these people do of their views, where it's like, this is the way I'm seeing it. Here's the risk I think you're overlooking here. But I'm very happy to hear people's perspectives out. Like I'm interested in I'm interested in being wrong. If I'm wrong, that means that there was information I didn't have, and now I can have better information. That's great.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited when I'm wrong or when I read arguments where I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Like
No,
that excites me because I'm interested in truth. These people are interested in something else.
yeah, I do think it's I think it's what you said earlier. It's like having much more of a team mentality over this shit than anything else. But I think a lot of times, and I kind of want to touch on something you kind of said it earlier, but I also was thinking about this before the interview, before we were hop on here. Because there's something I've heard you say when we were going out doing shows and stuff where you you say with work in sales and stuff, you have like a really good like bullshit detector. And I think like a big thing with like I'm getting to a stage where I feel like I've hit a new layer, but I've hit that layer where you're like, I just think everything's the feds. You know what I mean? Like I've hit that stage where I'm like, every single bad thing that's happened was the feds. No fucking way. But I'm curious, like with your knowledge of sales and just how long you've been into this kind of shit, like what's the kind of stuff where like the obvious propaganda and the bullshit and stuff like sticks out to you?
You mean particularly when it comes to the Fed?
Or just yeah, I guess with that, I guess with like, well, you were saying about with the, I think an
Right.
interesting point you were saying with the, or I heard you say this before with the, scene stuff like that. You were like, when you were watching them talk about that, you're like, this feels like they're trying to sell me a product rather
Right.
than give me a remedy to a
Right.
problem I have.
Well, a simple, like, I'll just tell you a simple one is if people have good information, they'll give it to you.
Mm,
And so if people aren't willing to give you straight answers and good information, they're probably hiding something.
yeah.
Now there's two. So I'll tell you, like I used to sell leads over the phones to contractors. It was pretty grimy.
Hmm.
And I couldn't, I didn't know how well my product worked. I literally didn't. They didn't get the company didn't give me good information about how many jobs these people would land. So I'd have to dance around the performance, and you come up with all sorts of different slick answers for as to why. But it's like if you had good information, I would just tell the guy information. If I knew the numbers, I would tell him, yeah, dude, it's probably going to be 50% of your jobs. What do you make on a job? Cool. You're paying this. You're going to see this in return. It's a very simple answer.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? Like if
Yeah.
you have good information, you can just give people good information. If you don't have good information, you do one of two things. You ready for this, Andy?
Mm-hmm.
You dance around the information and you just like spin, but you don't really give the question, or you just reduce things to like slogans. Well, don't worry, it works. Don't worry, it works. That's like a Trump thing. No, it'll work. It'll be great. You won't give any of the specifics. The point I'm just forget like all these little things. It's just the signals. If people have good information, they'll
Mm-hmm.
give you the good information. If
Yeah.
they don't have good information, that's when you start seeing spin. That's when you start seeing words like it may work. That's when people won't explain the reasoning, but they'll just boil things down to, well, it's safe and effective. It will work. Just trust me, it will work. Yeah, it will work. The scientists said appeal to authorities. You know what I mean? There's just it's a simple rule. If people have good information, they'll give you it. If they don't, that's when you just start hearing all sorts of bullshit nonsense and dancing around what your question was.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and then they start going into the direction where you see that a lot with the like all that goofy gender shit when you're like looking at the like non-binary this or whatever the fuck, and then you're like asking questions and they immediately go to like try to make you feel bad about yourself, like
Right.
you're homophobic or you're transphobic or whatever the fuck. And you're just like, no, just non-binary shit makes no goddamn sense to me.
Well, that's such a weird move when they go, well, why is this important to you? Well, it's really not. It's that you're being very loud about it and
Yeah.
it's not making a lot of sense to me. So I'm asking the logic behind it. And then, but that's the same thing. It's playing for the team where it's like, I shouldn't have to explain this logic. You're bigoted if you're questioning it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have that like why should I. Yeah, it's like, you know what? That makes sense if you have the if you sort of look at it like it's a team or like it's a religion, there is almost a thing. I remember I had a girlfriend in high school who was like super religious, and I was like your typical high school atheist, and we would always like they would always debate that we would always debate that stuff, and then it would get to a certain point where I would like kind of like, but then what about this? And then if she ran out of anything, it would always just be like faith. You know what I mean? You just have to have faith in it. And I'm not trying to like shit on religion and stuff, but it is sort of a thing where if you look at it with these I'm going back to the girl throwing her hands up and everything, where it's like when you hit those sort of like sacred cows where you're like, you're just supposed to go along with this. It's almost like that's why they get so fucking offended when you touch on any of those points, because it's like, you're not supposed to question this. You're just supposed to do that.
Well, these are people who really think that they're intelligent and righteous.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing information that's counter to that worldview, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's just so interesting though to like do those two things at the same time. Cause it's like I go back to any time I've ever gotten big and started yelling like that. And it's purely because of insecurities. Like if I feel like substantially intellectually superior in a conversation, I'm not screaming about anything. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. So it is this interesting fucking thing where it's like you're acting like you're over the top intellectually superior, but you're also having a response similar to a tired child. It's very confusing and interesting.
I'll tell you something, and this might be, I don't know, people might be offended by this, but I have found, typically speaking, intelligent people are quicker to admit, hey, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
The dumber people are, the more they want to cover it up.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they have a little bit less control over those situations. So they want to cover up. Like if I've noticed it with intelligent people, if they fuck up, they just go, oh shit, I fucked that one up. My bad. It's because there's not an insecurity that they're going to fuck up everything. And so they don't want something on like the track record of having fucked up.
Yeah.
Whereas like dumb people are very insecure about going, oh, I made an error. Like they never want to admit to it at all in any capacity.
Yeah.
Which there's something about that here also where it's like they don't really, but these are smart people. It's more of an indoctrination in this regard.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. Well, I noticed the difference between like libertarians versus say like liberals is like, I feel like, and libertarians definitely have the same problem too, but it's part of the reason why you're down to like it's why you're down to spend time learning about the Federal Reserve versus other shit, because you're not worried about like looking weird or being a little bit out there on some shit. But I think sometimes like a lot of people will have this sort of disconnect because they're afraid of, I don't know. Sometimes I think
they're a little bit more married to being in the in group,
dude.
I can see that.
I literally think it boils down sometimes of like they don't want to seem uncool or weird. You know what I mean? Because I was literally talking to my friends because like I'll joke about 9/11 or whatever sometimes and talking about that stuff. And I remember some of my friends were just being like, yeah, I would, but I just don't want to be one of those guys. And it's that mental image of being one of those guys that overpowers like, I'm just not even gonna, because I even had that thought when I was getting into that Sandusky podcast, because I was like, damn it, what happens if they convince me now? Now I'm the guy who's like, whenever that comes up, I'm like, well, actually, and then you gotta fight over all that shit.
Right. Yeah. I'm over the, I had two sisters growing up, and I learned, it's like, oh, well, it's a group activity. Yeah, it's the group activity that you fuckers want to do. I don't want to do group activity. I'll just do my own fucking thing. I feel that way with all of, it's like, I like jam bands. Jam bands are a little weird to most people.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to your shitty concert. I'll go alone to the thing I like. So I understand that. I guess I've never really fit into these dumb groups because they're all idiots. So I've never had that feeling of, oh, I shouldn't go explore this thing because then I'll be weird. I mean, I was religious for a lot of my life. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's been a huge thing since I was in like high school and college. I've been like, because I used to be the like prototypical college lefty liberal. Right. And I was that guy who knew fucking nothing and would talk down to you if you disagreed with me. And I still have remnants of it from time to time, but I
Well,
think I'm
it's convenient. It's a
yeah.
convenient way to look at life that we outsource our morality to government, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to make decisions about caring for the poor and, the way that everything's going to work. And I just support them and the distribution of wealth. And as long as I always err on the side of socialism, I'm the good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think living in a first world country like we do, where you don't have those like big decisions where if I don't do this, my whole family will die. So it tends to be more like social status and things like that, where you focus way more heavily on, because that's what everything seems like it is now, about who's like the most moral and virtuous. And like that seems like the biggest, because like no one has money, no one has anything. There's no prospects of like owning a house or having a family. So you're like, I might as well just be the best person. Like I'll be the most I'll have all the right
Right.
opinions. Yeah,
That's really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like they're not, because I agree with you. It's like I think go if you invest in, hey, I just want to be a great mom, that
mm-hmm,
to me is a really noble life. Or if you just want to be great at whatever your business is and not engage in politics, that's great too. It's like you can go do your own thing. You don't have to engage with politics. But I think you're right that for a lot of people, these other things that might have created meaning, maybe it's not there or it's not on their to-do list or it seems unattainable.
yeah,
So then I guess they're more married to, as long as I'm holding up these liberal ideals, I've made my contribution to morality.
yeah,
And I think that's part of the pitch of government is, hey, as long as you keep us in power, one, they lie and they go, we can handle all this, we can handle the debt levels, this is all sustainable.
yeah.
Right? That's their pitch, is this is sustainable. If anyone's telling you otherwise, it's because they're mean. They just don't want to help poor people.
Yeah.
That's kind of the pitch to liberals is, hey, listen, you use your education and you make sure that everyone knows that government can afford everything and that we can take care of the poor. And you just make sure that no evil person tells you otherwise. And so you start prodding at that and going, it's not that I'm mean, it's that I know that government's actually making it harder for people to attain what they want. And here's how, they shut down. That's just against like
Mm-hmm.
the whole fabric of the reality.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I wanted to ask you about this actually. Because I was listening to you your New Orleans episode, which I
Narlands.
feel like Nolans was fucking great for you. You love a good bite to eat.
I had so much fun in that town. Just
Yeah.
because you know what it was? I compared it to it's like, if you leave me alone, firstly, I don't like modern television because you'll when I say this, you might agree instantly, you might be frustrated by this. I used to be such a good channel surfer. And when I
Okay.
say a channel surfer, I mean like memorizing my head, channel 18, this going on, this one's going on, this is during the commercial break of that one, the last button. Like I would like figure out the patterns of, all right, you can't really do that anymore because on a traditional cable box, there's a delay from when I press the button to when the picture appears.
Mm.
So it's already not as ADD friendly.
Oh.
They also kind of better coordinated like the breaks.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll be in a hotel room that's got like an old school cable box. I haven't even seen this in a while where it's like super direct. Like I
Yeah.
press the button and it changes like channels instantly.
And it won't tell you what's coming up.
Yeah, I don't want that bar. I don't need the information. I can navigate a channel guide pretty good too, like off the bat to kind of get like my orientation around
Yeah.
TV. So you can still do that with radio. I'll sit in the car and I can tell like I'll be pissing people off if they're driving with me because like I'll spend a lot of time tuning that channel, find something I like, and then bounce from it pretty quickly. I felt like New Orleans was the live version of channel surfing music because
Mm-hmm.
bands are playing like up against the window. So I could just like walk the street and be like, they're playing a shitty cover right now. And then I would just go to the street corner and then like, there'd be a band doing whatever. I'd listen to them for 2 songs and then I would walk up. So I don't think anyone would have enjoyed being with me. Like, I think that was one of the, you know what I mean? I think if anyone was with me, they would have been like, what the fuck are you doing? Like the way I was like darting around and
Yeah,
listening
yeah.
to like 10 bands at the same time. But to me, that was an absolute blast.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Orleans seems like a good fucking time.
I could spend more time there. Like, dude, most of these cities, I show up to the city, I was like, this city fucking sucks. There's nothing here. Everyone's got a cunty attitude. Fuck this city. New Orleans, I had it like every night. I went to the end of the street, like I was just drinking, smoking weed, walked it back, just caught different genres of music for a couple hours. It was fun.
Was that your was that your favorite place you've been? Because you definitely with like the summer porch tour and everything, like you get to like interesting areas of the country.
I've seen it all. Some towns have been like funner or nicer than others. Firstly, I don't spend that much time in these cities. Like sometimes I can basically just walk the downtown area and then it's catch a flight home.
Yeah.
And also the show is always the funnest part. You know what I mean? It's like that distorts it. Whereas like you can be if we're out like Max's house is the height of porch tour.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a city, but that's just like the funnest hang of the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's just in like a big neighborhood. But
there's nothing there. There's literally nothing there.
Yeah, Max's house rules.
Right.
Yeah, that is that to do a quick ad for Porch Tour. That is that is like the most fun. Like I remember Pittsburgh ruled because like we were literally hanging out front. People showed up. We were cracking beers with them, and then there's just a moment where like you look at the time and you're like, "You guys want to do the show?"
Right.
And then we do the show, and then we go back to partying. Like it's just
that one. We got lucky with how well that went because that was the worst draw of the whole tour, and so we got lucky because that could not have been a funner bunch of. Maybe it was 13 or 15 people, if I'm guessing.
Yeah,
it was what it was. But they couldn't like they loved it, which made it fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah. All right. The city, I did not like LA in any capacity. I thought that town sucked. Nashville, I've been mostly unimpressed with. Like this past time when me and BK Chris went into Nashville, we didn't even hang out. We went right to where Porch Tour was going on.
Yeah.
I surprisingly, here's the other thing. I got to be honest. I like getting out in nature. That's like the big thing I'll do if I get to a town is like find the hike, the waterfront, whatever the fuck it is. I kind of like to see scenery. And if not, I just kind of ADD the town where I'll just kind of go for a run, see as much of it as I can and get the fuck out of there. I really enjoyed Reno. I don't know why. Like I just had a lot of fun in Reno. I thought that was like dive bar Las Vegas. Like Vegas, I think sucks.
Yeah.
Vegas, like whatever you have going on in Vegas might be fun. The town itself fucking sucks.
Dude, I was thinking about that walking down Fremont Street. Well, as you were talking about New Orleans, I was like, that sounds like Fremont Street if it didn't fucking suck. Because like in New Orleans, you've got a blues band and this and that. In fucking Vegas, you've got some shitty Michael Jackson impersonator while a bunch of fucking fat Midwesterners are doing the cha-cha slide. And like all that horse shit. Vegas was like when we went there for Skankfest. Skankfest was amazing. Fremont Street sucked.
Yeah. You couldn't say it better. Skankfest, because we're there for Skankfest. Skankfest fucking awesome.
Yeah.
There's nothing that fun or interesting about Vegas. There really just isn't. And that was high up on the list of places I wanted to, I was curious to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seattle, I didn't think much of. Portland sucks now. Like Portland really sucks. I'm trying to think where else I've been. I mean, you name it, I've been there.
Yeah. Hell yeah. But the reason I was bringing that up was you were talking about the World Economic Forum, and you had a really interesting line because you've been talking a lot. If you go watch Robbie's I have the phrase year-end recap that you do. You had a big thing in there about like the Green New Deal and the global warming stuff and a lot and like the World Economic Forum's like they're using that to kind of like push their shit. And the one thing I've heard you bring it up a lot on Part of the Problem in your show is like false scarcity. And you had this one line where you go false scarcity, where their carbon consumption doesn't count, but ours will. And I thought that was like really interesting. So you were talking about like where the World Economic Forum is going to build with all this stuff. And I was wondering if you could kind of like break that down more for the listeners and everything. Because I thought that was super interesting.
Thank you, sir. So I'll be honest, I can't say that as an absolute. I like to be honest, like about, like I haven't read that. I haven't seen anyone talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is like, all right, for example, I've said I'm part of the problem. I think if the FBI could have their way, I would be considered a domestic terrorist and I'd be in jail. I think if they could get away with that, they would do it. Do I think within my lifetime, They're going to be able to convince enough of America that there's a risk of domestic terrorism and then push it to the point that anything you've said online that criticizes the machine lands you in jail. I don't actually think we're going to get there, but I can tell you that if they had their way, that's the reality we would live in. So when I say that I think this is what the World Economic Forum is looking for, firstly, there's already like a degree of this happening. Like I could see that this is what they want. I don't know that it will actually happen. But all right, here's just like a pretty good example. You look at an electric vehicle, and I haven't done all the math on this, but when you got an electric vehicle and they tell you that the electric vehicle is better for the environment, are we pricing in all of the firstly, are we pricing in, like, you want to talk about morality? Are we pricing in the child labor that goes into the battery components? Are we pricing in the coal that's being burned by China to produce it? Right. And then are we pricing in the fact that it might not be as recyclable as current cars are? Right. And then also, are we comparing it to vehicles that could also become progressively more efficient on gasoline? So that's what I mean by, like, is there carbon consumption that's not being priced in? And so, for example, like, I think what they're looking to do is that they will, I think they do want if ideally they would like to cap your carbon consumption, which is a false scarcity. You could go around, you could fucking drive your car endlessly. There's enough oil in the world for the entire duration of your lifetime. You can go drive your car. It would never be a problem. But if they cap your carbon emissions, all of a sudden that could be a real problem. If you're a fucking trucker, well, if you're a guy like me, let's say I was actually on the road and I was just driving everywhere. I fly a bunch for my shows. All of a sudden I might not be able to do this because I'm over my carbon consumption. Right. So that's like a false scarcity. It's not that the planes don't exist. It's not that the oil doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's that you're telling me that I can't consume it on the basis that I've overconsumed carbon. The goods and services aren't scarce, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I would think that what they're going to do is that their carbon consumption won't count. So, like, if they convert, let's say, your engines to like an electric rail line, so whatever production has to go into doing that, it's just not going to count. They're not going to go, oh, this company's over its carbon. Like, you'll have a personal thing for your carbon consumption. The green energy company that is transitioning us to more friendly things, they're not going to, when they show up to town with a crane, they're not going to go the CEO's over his carbon consumption. They're going to go, well, this is the investment that we need in order to get off carbon. So all of a sudden we're going to be in this world where it's like they get to consume carbon to create things that supposedly are more economically friendly. And then our consumption of those goods and services are going to be capped. So that's just a way of kind of favoring the elite, where it's like, so they get to sit down and make investments in infrastructure that we're going to be forced to use, which kind of ties into the you'll own nothing and be happy about it, because they might create infrastructure that none of us can afford, but our only option is going to be to rent.
Wait, that's like an actual quote, right?
Yeah, they're claiming that it isn't, but yes.
Yeah, because don't they try to like do that memory hole shit where they like do some creepy
we never said it. We didn't mean it. I did a joke on my podcast. I've never found the angle on it, but it's like their example is that it was like the laundromat is that some people, they can't afford a washer dryer. So you just rent it for the amount of time that you need it. I was like, the washer dryer fucking sucks. That's the worst thing in the world. There's nothing worse than having to go to a place to do my laundry. That's your example. For the rest of my reality, I'm going to have to go to a place and get an oven and then sit there and read while I bake my fucking pie. Like, instead of having a car, I'm going to have to share it with other dirty people. Like, that's your example. The laundromat. There's nothing worse than going to the laundromat. It sucks. No one likes it.
It takes way too long.
Yeah.
It's not as good as what you could have at home.
But I honestly think, well, there's a bigger theme. And this is what it all boils down to. In a free market, the only way that you're going to extract $1 from someone is if you're giving them something of value. That's it. And as technology gets better, there are more opportunities for people to innovate, create value, displace industries, and get, like, for example, when Bezos came around, he can get me a package to my door so I don't have to go to a store. And somehow the shipping's free. If I go to the store, I still got to carry it. I still got to get it to my door. He can get it to my door sooner than me going to the store. It's easier to find, and he gets it to me. If you're Walmart, do you want Amazon existing? Of course not. That's competition. This guy's figured out a way to deliver it right to your door.
Yeah.
If you're, it exists in every single industry. The current established players, they never want to compete with innovation. It's not what they want. Or you look at what we're doing with podcasting. I think this is the best example of decentralization. There was a time before cable news. What was there? There was one news show on NBC at 9 p.m. And then all of a sudden there's a cable news network. So when cable news comes around, so now there's like 50 news show. Now we're in an environment where there's probably 10,000. I'm not saying they're all monetized, but I'm able to eke out some amount of money by doing a news show from my house. If you're CNN, you don't want me being able to do a news show from my house. Yeah. You want to go back to the point in time when there was no competition, which is what they try and do with that's what they're trying to do with misinformation. We can't just have anyone sharing their opinions. If we have other people sharing their opinion, then you end up with misinformation. Misinformation leads to violence. That's not they don't want to have to compete. So you got to realize anyone who's currently in power that's making money, they're not looking to create better goods and services to compete with other people to continue to have your business. They want to figure out ways that they don't have to compete so that they can continue to get a bigger piece of the pie and have more centralization so that it's also one of these things. It's like, if you're a fucking parasite, the more centralized things are, the more you can kind of extract from it. The more spread apart it is, right? The more people you have to kind of win over in order to extract wealth. Yeah. So you can just boil it down to a very simple theme. We win by innovation, by new products and new technologies that come into the marketplace and give us goods and services for less money than the current established protocols. The machine, or you could say established players, well, they win by making sure that new innovators, new competition doesn't enter the marketplace so that they can continue to kind of have control and make the money. This whole ESG thing, you start looking at it like, wait a second, you're telling me the biggest bank is interested in the well-being of the planet? They're not interested in profits? No, what they're interested in doing, and it comes at the expense of all of us, is they want to basically have control over a new energy infrastructure with less competition that's green energy based, and that they're able to control because finance from the capital, from government, and from them is like only being steered in a certain direction. They're trying to regulate things out of existence that they would otherwise have to compete with. And the World Economic Forum just fits in with this because they're already talking about the ESG shit, the stakeholder capitalism. So I don't know the specifics on this guy or the specific things that he's looking for, but you can just look at the themes. He's looking for greater centralization, right? We win through decentralization. The more decentralized things are, the more winners there are, right? If there's if I can own my mom and pop, mechanic shop, think about how many mom and pop mechanic shops can exist. Whereas if one guy goes in and goes, there's been a fault, and they can hyper focus on anything. There's been too many faulty breaks because of mom and pop shops. And so there should only be one centralized thing that's going to do all the mechanic work in every single town. Well, that's great for that person. You legislated away everyone else. Now one person gets to be a winner. You see what I'm saying? The more decentralized things are, the more winners there are, the more people that can eke out a living. Take the news example. I do a news show. I'm able to make $1,000 or whatever it is a month, but I'm able to exist. People in power, they want things as centralized as possible so that there isn't competition. So when you hear a guy like the World Economic Forum who's talking about things like centralization, he's talking about monitoring people's habits. He's talking about monitoring people's carbon, right? He's talking about that you have to have a health passport. So you're looking at a person who's describing as much centralization as possible so that he can control things and limit competition, limit the value that he needs to create in the marketplace in order to make money. So it's don't even get too caught up with the fucking specifics of what they're doing. You can just look at the themes. If people are talking about centralization or protection in industries, they're talking about robbing from you. They're talking about limiting your opportunities to either go compete in the market or for competitors to come into the market and give you goods and services for less money than the current established players.
Interesting.
Is that too much? I mean,
no. It makes sense because it's it makes sense because a lot of these companies, it's way easier to have a governmental type force control the competitors than it is for you to compete and innovate. So I completely understand the impulse.
This is the biggest thing that liberals get wrong, is that they think that evil corporations are going to ruin their lives if not for government. And what they don't realize is that government is what introduces force into the market, which allows corporations to act in worse ways than they could if we had a free market. If you got a free market, someone has to give you something of value. Otherwise, you're not going to give them $1.
That's where they get fucked up about the corporations, where you go, yeah, a lot of people at the top of those corporations have evil intent, but it's the government that empowers that and lets them do that
Without
stuff.
the government, they couldn't do it. They would have to be giving you something of value.
Yeah.
There'd be no way for them to. And by the way, that's the beauty of capitalism that people just don't understand, is that capitalism means you're good at allocating capital. That's like the basis of it. So what does that mean? Like, let's say I was able to predict, like, I don't know, think of something that, let's just say that next year, for example, we ended up in a situation we were short on food. Let's just say that happened, right? And then let's say that there was some billionaire who kind of forecasted for that, and he decided to make giant silos filled with wheat.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like the Joseph story from the Bible, right? Fucking forecasts it. And so during all the harvest seasons, he's stockpiling wheat, right?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're in an environment where there's a famine, or the World Economic Forum got rid of nitrates, and now people can't afford to farm. And, we got limited supply on food because you also started a war in Ukraine and other things to disrupt food supplies. I'm not saying we're going to be short on food. I can't follow this story, but let's just say theoretically.
Yeah.
Billionaire steps into the market on the year that no one has food, and he goes, hey, guys, guess what? I got all this food that you need. And so what do? We all purchased the food.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't steal from us. He predicted that the market was going to need something. He actually helped us out of a bind.
Yeah.
He predicted that we were going to need something. And then you know what happens? As a result of doing that, he gets more capital because we all just gave him money. And now he can once again forecast what the market needs, invest in it, and then get it to us. You know what happens when you think the market needs something and it doesn't need it? You lose money.
Yeah.
Stated differently, you lose capital. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you don't have the resources to make an investment in forecasting what the market needs.
Yeah.
You know what? Stated differently, you know what capitalism does very well? What? It rewards people who are good at predicting what people would need with capital so that they can then give us what we need in the future. It's literally nearly a perfect system of the people that are best at predicting what we're going to need will acquire the most capital so that they can once again get us what we need. And the people who are very bad at allocating capital and make faulty predictions about what people are going to want to need, they get wiped out. Government fucks this up because it introduces this thing called force, right?
Yeah.
Free market, it's value. You got to create value, and it's free exchange. You move into the government system, and all of a sudden you got force where the biggest corporations are manipulating markets. They don't have to actually create value, and they can limit competition. Andy, I got to go prep for part of the problem, so I'll let you hit me. I'll let you hit me with one more.
This is a good one. How do you? Because you've been making me laugh about this. Is Kanye possibly the funniest guy ever now that he's teaming up with Milo and Nick Fuentes?
Well, not only is he teaming up with Milo and Nick Fuentes, he marched himself into Donald Trump's lair and he said, "You should be my VP."
Oh, yeah, I mean, he did.
That is fucking insane. And not only is that insane, he meant it. He showed up. All right. Firstly, I mean, I hope that they run that ticket. Are you kidding me? What other internet rejects can they gather together? I'll work on that campaign, Kanye. Call me up.
Dude, it's so I saw the video. Someone shared the video of him walking by with Nick Fuentes, and I was like, because I'm trying to remember. It's like in a well-written TV show where you go, I never saw that coming, but obviously that's because he's going through the bosses of getting like too red pilled. And I'm like, oh yeah, you hit 4chan edgelord on Jew stuff, and then now you've like beat a couple more bosses and you've made it to Nick Fuentes. That's where you got to go, Kanye.
I also think part of it is if you reach a level of exceptionalism and wealth, you think you're in a category where no one can fuck with you.
Yeah.
And then I think when you find out, wait a second, I've worked this hard, I'm this good at making money, I'm worth this much money, I'm making this much money for people, and I can still be fucked with. I think there's like a trigger in some of these people's head where like, well, I got no choice but to become the president, which is kind of what Trump did.
Yeah.
When Obama made fun of him, he's like, all right, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are like competitive people. Like
No,
you and I, we don't rise to the top. And I'm putting myself. I'm a little bit lazy where it's like you give me a small piece of pie. I'm like, this is great. I got some pie here. Whereas
100%. Yeah, yeah.
other people, you know what I mean? It's like, dude, if I could make a living doing stand up and do like the hundred, like I'm not saying I work very hard and I wouldn't want more, but like I don't look at selling 300 seaters and go, well, how do I sell out the Garden? I'm like, I did it. I'm selling. Now maybe
Oh
I get to
no.
the 300 seaters and I start thinking about the Garden, but
Yeah. No, I'm the guy who when you get your tax return, like I remember one year I think I got lucky and my tax return was like 3 grand and I was like, I'm the richest man in the
yeah,
world.
like I don't have to work this year. 3 grand.
I
I'm
have
good.
I have so much money. No one's ever had this much money.
3 grand. This is
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
but so I think with a guy like Kanye, uh, I mean, the last time he tried to run it, it failed in a week because he turned around and went, "Sorry guys, I'm bipolar." I mean, that's literally what happened. He did one press conference and he said shit that was so stupid. Turned
Oh.
around 2 weeks later and went, "You know what? I'm gonna go back on my meds."
Yeah,
That's what
he was
happened the
doing
last
that.
time.
He was doing that press conference in the bulletproof vest, like crying, right?
Yeah, no, he said some dumb shit about abortion. It just didn't make sense. And
Yeah,
within a
yeah.
week, he was like, "You know what? Bad idea."
JK.
Now he's coming back and he's doing it again. And I think part of the whole, I don't know entirely people's intentions, but I think part of his thing is just like, fuck you, don't censor me. I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. I'm not saying that's all of it, but
Yeah.
I think there's a part of fuck you, don't censor me. And now that he's in that zone, and I guess I mean, I don't, dude, I'm not even familiar with him as an artist. Like, I don't, like,
Hmm.
I've not listened to any, so it to me, it's just like a character, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think I, I wonder if this is really just a troll job where he's like, I guess he's going, hey, you're trying to censor me. I'm gonna become a lot louder. And he's putting together like his crew of what would be a good title for them? Like I don't know, the
Dude, I
censored rejects. Like I don't even know.
yeah, I don't know. They're just like
Yeah.
the most censored bunch.
The troll team.
Yeah, he's getting together Troll Team 6.
Yeah, troll team 6.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hope that he goes as fucking weird and as loud as possible. But I also hope the Jews stay out of censoring him because it's not a win.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you go. Prep for part of the problem. Thank you so much, Robbie, for coming hang out. Go check out Robbie's podcast, Run Your Mouth, Part of the Problem. And is there anything else you want him to check out?
Yeah, I got a bunch of live tour dates. I'm on the road, RobbieTheFire.com, Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas City, and St. Louis.
Hell yeah. Go check out Robbie. Peace.